Policy shifting, rules on the move. Parents and teachers get in the groove. No more confusion, no more delay. Facts that matter right here today. Polity Pulse, breaking it down. Education news, straight from the ground. What's changing now? What's coming next? Stay informed, don't second guess. Decisions are made, the future's at stake. Let's get the facts, there's too much at play. This is Policy Pulse, Education Edition.
Hello, everyone. I am super excited to be back with you all for the relaunch of Policy Pulse, where I, Katina Taylor, founder and CEO or executive director of Dreams KC, an education nonprofit located here in the state of Missouri, will go live each and every Thursday, 6:30 p.m., shifting the time a bit. To make sure that I join you all at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook, on LinkedIn, as well as YouTube. We will be discussing some amazing topics that are explosive, important, some things that you need to know as it relates to statewide and national policy around education. So welcome everyone to Policy Pulse Education Edition, where we break down what's happening in K-12 education so you can stay informed, you can stay empowered, and most importantly, you can stay ahead for the benefit of your children, your community, your neighborhood. As always, this is a discussion, so drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from, and let's dive in because I want to honor your time, and I want to make sure that you all get exactly what you need in the way of information. All right? So very excited to just dive in tonight. We remember it was Cecilia and myself initially doing Policy Pulse. Moving forward, it will be myself, Katina, and there will be special guests from time to time, but we just want to make sure that we continue to bring the news you can use, information that you can use to impact the academic journey of your children from a policy perspective, right? So again, this is the relaunch. Over the next hour, I'll be sharing some breaking educational news from both Missouri and Kansas, an urgent update about Head Start, the programs that are right here in the KC metro area. And then we are jumping into a 10-part mini series focused on Title I. What it really is, how it works, what every parent should know. It is extremely important that families are engaged in this process. So whether you're watching this live, whether you're going to catch the replay, drop in the comments again where you're watching from, why you're watching, what you have gleaned from this broadcast, and what else you want to know. All right, so that's it. We're going to dive in and we are going to get started. All right, so before we do that, I want to make sure I give you a quick disclaimer. All right. So the views expressed in this broadcast are those of me, the individual speaking, and do not necessarily reflect the views of any organization, business, or entity that I may be affiliated with. This discussion is meant to provide fact-based analysis, to help parents, educators, and community members stay informed about education policy. That's the goal. All right. So, all right. So, we're going to start with Missouri education first, you guys. I'm going to give you the quick down and dirty details of some things that have happened over the last several months that are imperative for you to know about. Okay. So, that's where we're going to dive in. That's where we're going to start. All right. I love my new platform here. I have notes section, so I don't have to print things off and kill trees. So I'm just good. If you see me glancing back and forth, I want to make sure that I don't miss anything and I have everything you need covered. Okay. So Missouri, major legislative changes have happened this year and are already shaping what is happening in classrooms across the state. So we have Senate Bill 68, we have Senate Bill 160. Both have been enacted, right? These are education laws that parents need to be aware of. So one, and I know you've heard about it already, the cell phone ban. So students can no longer use cell phones during the school day except for specific educational or medical needs. And all school districts were required to have a policy in place if they didn't already. All right. So check with your school district, find out, ask what that policy is, how it impacts your child, your children, and what consequences may exist if, in fact, your child violates this policy. And then what would be acceptable use policies? So what medical needs, what educational instances are they able to utilize their cell phones? Okay. Now, the next thing, I'm so excited. There is now a requirement in the state of Missouri, you guys. Okay, here we go. That schools are now required to use structured phonics-based reading programs instead of 3-cueing strategies. That means when they are looking to adopt new teaching practices, adopt new curricula materials and supplies, around literacy, they should be steeped in the science of reading or structured literacy. If you hear the terms balanced literacy, whole language, 3-cueing, they are not in compliance with the law. So you need to be asking your school district, what curriculum are we using? How are we ensuring that our teachers, the educators that are in the classroom, especially pre-K to third grade, are learning, are aware of structured literacy, all of its components? Does our curriculum have a phonics-based strategy? Now, I will tell you this. If your school is only focusing on phonics, they have missed the mark. There needs to be phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, morphology, right? All of those things are important, and many others, which we'll talk about. Go on the Dreams KC Facebook page, the Literacy to Dreams Way Facebook group. You'll hear about all of that, but don't just think that phonics is the only thing that is needed. It is a part of the equation. Missouri now is requiring phonics-based reading instruction, but understand and know those other components are just as important. Okay. All right. So also in Missouri, the Most Scholars funding expansion has taken place. The state allocated $50 million from the general revenue to expand private and religious school scholarships. I will tell you that this is being challenged in the courts by teachers' unions because the majority of that money has gone to parochial schools, right? So that means particular charter schools or traditional public schools may be losing funding because $50 million from the general revenue is going to private and religious-based schools. Now, I'm not going to give any commentary on that. What I'm going to say is it's being challenged in court. Be watchful, see what the outcome can be. If your child is in a parochial school, a private school, and they are receiving scholarships, it benefits you. But for the majority of students across the state, it absolutely does not. So I'll leave it right there. That is something else. I reported previously on the next thing. I want to make sure I reiterate that is the Crown Act, y'all. Crown Act, for those of us that love to wear our hair as it grows out of our head, right? So schools are now in the Missouri, this is Missouri, officially prohibited from discriminating based on hairstyles or textures, okay? Hairstyles or textures connected to racial or cultural identity. French braids, locks, afros, right? Cornrows, you name it. Anything that is connected to, can be traced to cultural or racial identity. There should be nothing in a school or school district's policy that challenges that. They cannot discriminate based on hairstyles or textures in the state of Missouri. Okay. So that is the Crown Act. So that's the Missouri updates, you guys. They are really big shifts. And I tell you that phonics requirement specifically, ooh, it signals a major, major win for advocates like me that are looking for evidence-based reading instruction, right? Something that you all know I've been talking about for a really long time. So the fact that Missouri has said this is what needs to be happening says that we are going down the right path. There's some other things we need to work on, but we certainly are getting a head start in the right direction. Missouri also passed a comprehensive school safety law to standardize safety training and planning statewide. And they've also expanded Rooted, ROOTED, Missouri. And you may be asking, what is that? What does it mean? Well, it's an initiative that places college and career advisors in rural schools. And I should say, rural schools. So that program currently reaches about 180 schools, and it is part of the 2026 state budget. In St. Louis, St. Louis. I know I wanted to pinpoint some things for St. Louis. Several schools were damaged by the May 2025 tornado. They were closed during remodel, reconstruction, repair, etc., and they have reopened. So the recovery and the rebuilding efforts, it certainly is a relief for families that may have had to have larger class sizes because these buildings were closed. Again, they have reopened, and families are extremely happy about that because it has been an enormous disruption, so to speak. So, and then last but certainly not least, there is a debate happening in the state of Missouri regarding a proposed consent reform bill for students with disabilities. It would allow partial consent for IEPs. Partial consent, not total consent, not parents sitting at the table working in collaboration with school officials to develop an IEP plan for their children. Okay, so it would require partial consent. Now, I will tell you that people are upset about this, and they say that it is, some say it's a faster path to services. Others are concerned because they think it will weaken parental rights. So what I would say is anytime state law is in direct contradiction to federal law, then we have a problem. So I think keep your ears and eyes open. If you are a champion for special education in the state of Missouri, get involved, get engaged, track this legislation to kind of figure out where it is headed. If there's an opportunity for public comment, please make yourself available, be that virtually, if they allow that, if it's in writing, or if you need to travel to Jeff City. Find out who your state board of education rep is. Have a conversation with him or her to determine. And matter of fact, I'm going to put on my social media platforms who serves on the state board of education, what areas they represent, how you can get in touch with them. And therefore, now you have the information to talk to the people that are supposed to be representing your interests. Now, they are generally appointed and not elected. So the question becomes, are they really there to represent your interests if they're not elected, but that's a whole nother conversation. So here's your takeaways for Missouri families, right here, Missouri. I want you to expect some major changes in how reading is taught, how schools handle technology, how student safety is managed, and how your voice factors into special education decisions. That's it. That's Missouri. I know that was a lot. So come back and take a look at it. Um, you can record it, all of the things. This is a snapshot of the things that are most pressing in Missouri education. So I want to flip the script a bit and I want to go to Kansas, right? So we're crossing the state line, we're going to Kansas because I will tell you that education has been in the spotlight a lot in Kansas as well. And I think it is imperative that you all know exactly what's happening and how it impacts your children, the educators that teach your children, and you, right, as the voting public, and as a parent or caregiver of a school age child. So the U.S. Department of Education has launched a federal investigation into 4 Kansas school districts. Interestingly enough, this is about gender identity policies that allow students to use restrooms or participate on teams that align with their gender identity, not necessarily their biological gender. Now, the Department of Ed launched the investigations, although there have been no formal parent complaints. None. So what that says is perhaps the school boards, the superintendents, etc., have made these policies known. Everyone is aware of them. Parents apparently are accepting of them, or at least some are. Yet the U.S. Department of Education has decided to investigate these school districts anyway. Possibly overreach, I would think, but you judge for yourself. All right. So what has happened in light of this investigation is that a lot of conversations statewide about local control, privacy, parental notification, things of that. And it really is, as I said, like, federal oversight, I say overreach, can happen. And it really, I think, brings into focus a deeper conversation we need to have around local and state decisions in education and how they then impact us. So that's the, you may think is good news, you may think is bad news. That is the news. On a brighter note, I will say, Kansas is taking a major step forward with literacy, just like Missouri. So the Kansas State Board of Education approved a 3-year structured literacy pilot program. It will start in 2026, and it focuses on improving early grade reading through evidence-based instruction, explicitly based on what research says kids need. Now, when we talk about structured literacy, when we talk about the science of reading, understand and know that this is not new research. It has been around for decades, long as I've been alive, right? However, nationally in the United States, we went to balanced literacy, whole language, 3 cueing methods, and abandoned what we know research says works for children. So I am excited that both Missouri and Kansas are now rethinking and requiring us to go back to what we know works for students. All right. So the state is also seeing real improvement in teacher recruitment. This is the state of Kansas. Vacancies have dropped 21% since 2024, which is really, really good because we have been facing, both in Missouri and Kansas, some significant teacher shortages. A lot of classrooms have had long-term subs that haven't had the skill set, the training, the professional development they need to be effective educators of children. Through no fault of their own, they stepped up to the plate. We applaud them. I started as a sub, so I understand entering the profession from a different perspective. But we also know that highly qualified educators have improved outcomes for students. So we want to thank those that show up to sub, especially long-term subs, but we also want to apply those that are jumping into the profession. So in Kansas, university enrollment is up 2.5%. Emporia State is showing the biggest gains in terms of enrollment. And then we have some national blue ribbon recognition. So in Kansas City, in Hickman Mills, Ingalls Elementary, this on the Missouri side, received national blue ribbon recognition. On the Kansas side, you had McLean Science and Technology Magnet, which is in Wichita. You had Jefferson West Elementary and Sterling Grade School. All of those earned national blue ribbon recognition for academic excellence. That means that their students are showing significant gains in growth across the board. So kudos, shout out those schools. If your child attends those schools, thank the teachers, thank the administrators, thank the district level leaders that are supporting the growth of those students within those buildings. That's amazing. Kudos to all of those folks. We just tapping in. I'm telling you, this is just Missouri and Kansas news before we get to that deeper conversation around Title I. So stay tuned, stay involved, stay in. All right. So then the Kansas Association of School Boards is warning of potential federal funding freezes. We all know the federal government is shut down. Kansas is saying with their warning that could impact Title I funding. If it impacts it in Kansas, more than likely it will also be impacted in Missouri and special ed services. Both, of course, are critical for schools that serve high needs, quote unquote, high needs population. Also, oftentimes when we say high needs, we mean poor, or when we say high needs, we mean Black or brown or rural, right? So just understand and know that if you have a school that has, for Missouri anyway, 40% free or reduced lunch, that's considered a Title I school. All right, that's kind of the measuring stick. So Kansas parents, what I would encourage you to do, just like I would encourage our Missouri parents to do, is to stay engaged, especially around reading reforms and federal funding conversations that could directly impact your child's school. If your school board is meeting, you should be in those meetings, because that is where you're going to know, find out, learn about federal funding impacts. And we know that across the board, at the federal level, funding cuts are happening. We're currently in a government shutdown. So a lot of things are, and there are some districts that are just struggling. There's a significant deficit, and we need to know the plan, the strategy that they will use to ensure that they can still deliver high quality education, even in light of these funding cuts. So what are they doing at the district level? What are they doing at the building level? We need to know all of these things. Where can they trim the fat so that it does not directly impact the academic outcomes of our children? All right. That's what I got in terms of updates, y'all. We've done Missouri, we've done Kansas. Now I want to turn our attention to the major topic of conversation for this evening's broadcast. And we're making really good time, so I'm very excited about that. And it is about Title I. We will be doing a 10-part series about Title I, simply because once you know something, you can't unknow it. And I became aware of some things recently. Actually, I learned about them a long time ago, but I didn't really follow up. And so it has risen back up to the surface. And I think now is the time for all of us collectively and collaboratively to address the issue. All right. So that is where we're going to dive into next. I am going to just have me up on screen because I don't think you need to see that. And then I am going to make sure my notes are ready to go. And I'll tell you what we're going to talk about today is laying the foundation. What is Title I? How do you know your school may or may not get Title I funding? Because it's a federal program. I want to break it down to you in easy to understand terms. And over the course of these next 10 weeks, like y'all, we're doing 10 weeks of this. And in addition to the 10 weeks, if you go to my Facebook, the Dreams KC Facebook page, if you go to the Dreams KC LinkedIn, if you go to Instagram, you will see post with a lot of this information broke down into bits and pieces and snippets that will be easily digestible for you as parents and caregivers of K-12, pre-K through 12 grade students. All right. So let's go ahead and dive in so that we can get started, y'all. So we'll do this, and then at the end, I'm going to talk about Head Start, because Head Start in Kansas City is facing a tremendous funding shortage, and we have recently received news. I might as well just go into it. If you are a parent, if you are a family, if you're a caregiver of preschoolers, Head Start programs are managed by the Mid-America Regional Council, MARC, M-A-R-C, and they may face temporary closures beginning November 1st. If federal funding isn't released in time, right? Because we're in this government shutdown. What we know is this. MARC hasn't received, and MARC is the entity in Kansas City that manages Head Start. Okay. So I want you to know that. So they haven't received the grant notification it needs for the new funding cycle that begins November 1st. Without these funds, MARC, the organization, cannot legally spend money after October 31st. That means for families in Kansas City, 2,300 children and 400 staff members could be affected. That's Jackson County, that's Clay County, that's Platte County. 2,300 children, 400 staff members. Some centers have said they are going to try to stay open using any emergency reserves that they have, but that also comes at a risk. If they stay open, they use emergency reserves, money that they have saved, but they don't get the reimbursement, they may eventually have to close as well. We don't know. One center, Emmanuel Family and Child Development Center, has made the decision that they are going to try to stay open and operate off their emergency reserves. Others are in the process of making decisions as we speak. So parents, talk to your centers, talk to your providers. What other centers are in your community or your neighborhood that could potentially service you? I will tell you that both Mayor Lucas and Congressman Cleaver have both publicly stated and called upon Congress, of course, to act to restore funding, because we understand that if parents don't have childcare, how do they work? Many of our children receive meals at daycare, not at home. What happens then? And then some families have their children in centers that stay open 24 hours because they have overnight shifts. If those services are ended, again, unemployment could potentially occur. So there is a lot to take in, to digest, to think about, to process. And I will tell you that parents are just now becoming aware of this, that they may not, this week, MARC made this announcement, they may not have care in 7 days, 8 days for their preschoolers, their pre-Kers. So stay alert. Go to MARC's official website, their social media channels and platforms. Check with your local center where your child actually goes to school. Make sure you understand whether or not they are a Head Start center or they are just a general run, state approved Missouri daycare center. Those are two different things. Their funding mechanisms are very different. You need to know where your children are, what type of center it is, and how they'll be impacted by these things. If closures do occur, not just, again, classrooms will be closing, and we already have a shortage of seats in Kansas City. Again, jobs, transportation, basic stability are at risk in the KC metro area. So I will continue to monitor the situation. I will continue to bring you updates as I learn about them. I've asked a lot of questions since the meeting that occurred on Monday morning, just this past Monday morning. And as we go along, I'm asking the tough questions for you all. If there's something you need to know, if your center is not answering your questions, reach out and let me know, because I'd love to support you all. So that is the Head Start crisis in Kansas City. Now we can move forward to Title I. All right. So understanding Title I and what it really means for your child's school. Whew. Again, this is a 10-part mini-series on Title I. It's one of the most misunderstood yet powerful programs in public education. And when I say it's one of the most misunderstood, is what I am learning as I begin to talk to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in Missouri, when I talk to school district officials, when I talk to LEAs, which is what charter schools are, right? They're not a district. They have one school they're responsible for. I am finding that and parents, there is a lot of misunderstandings occurring. And I think I'm getting to the roots of why we have misunderstandings, but we just need to start with the basics. I want you all to be informed as parents, as caregivers, as community members, even as educators, right? So let's dig in, and I'm not going to keep you all super long, but I think this is important for you all to know. So Title I was created in 1965, before I was born, under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Its purpose is simple, yet extremely profound. The purpose is to ensure that students in low-income communities have access to the same quality education as everybody else. That's it. It was created to ensure that students in low-income communities have access to the same quality education as everyone else. 1965. You know what was happening during that time. You know what it was probably birthed out of. We don't need to do the history of that, okay? Now, the funding supports schools with higher percentages of students from low-income families. So, hence, the determination, free and reduced lunch. Providing extra resources to close academic gaps. Now, one thing I'm going to push back on is this. Just because someone is poor does not mean that they are not intelligent. I'm just saying. There's an assumption that low-income families need additional resources to close academic gaps because they're poor. Not always the case. If you have Brown v. Board was supposed to address this, right? The inequity in terms of the distribution of resources to schools. So historically, schools in Black and brown communities, rural communities, were not funded at the same level as those in suburban areas, especially in Missouri, because we're based on property taxes. Whole other conversation, but get it, understand it. Schools with higher percentages of students from low-income families supposed to get extra resources to close academic gaps. That could mean reading and math intervention programs, smaller class sizes, technology access, summer learning, or professional development for teachers. But every single Title I dollar, every single Title I dollar must be supplemental. What does that mean? It means that every single Title I dollar must be used to enhance, not replace, what the school district already provides. How do we enhance it? Okay. I think that many schools stumble in one major area, and that is parent involvement in determining how to spend Title I dollars is not optional. It is required by the law, by the statute. Under the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, the language is clear that every Title I school must jointly develop with parents a parent and family engagement policy. What that means is that parents have a legal right to participate in planning, decision making, and reviewing how Title I funds are used. Planning, decision making, and reviewing. That's the statute, that's the law. Schools that don't have a functioning parent group that draft policies for parents instead of with them, or that never invite parent input before decisions are made, those schools, those school districts are not in compliance with the law. They just aren't. Parent engagement is a funding condition under Title I. It's not a nice idea. It's not a suggestion. It's not an encouragement. It is the law. So if you are a parent, grandparent, caregiver, legal guardian of a school-age child, and you're watching this tonight, I want you to ask your school 3 questions. 3. Y'all ready? Here we go. Do we have a written Title I parent and family engagement policy? That's question 1. Where's the policy? Number 2, who helped create it? And were parents involved from the start? From the start. And number 3, how is our school using Title I funds this year to improve student achievement? Those are the 3 questions. Do we have a written Title I parent and family engagement policy? Who helped create it and were parents involved from the start? And then how is our school using Title I funds this year to improve student achievement? If your school can't answer those questions clearly, it's time to start asking for transparency and documentation, because it is required by law. When families and schools work together, the research, the data says students thrive. And when they don't, funding alone can't fix inequity. That's the bottom line. So that's why I am diving into Title I. I just wanted to kind of get your wet your whistle, so to speak, tonight, get you started. But we have 10 weeks where we'll unpack the law, the data, the real life implications, and the power that parents have to ensure that Title I serves its purpose. Next week, I'll dive into Missouri's 40% rule and how the state decides which schools get Title I funds and what that means for equity and accountability and should mean for the academic growth and achievement of your children. So please, please, please don't miss out. You will want to be here. So that's it for tonight, y'all. I know that I feel like we've been on for a long time. Probably not 6:30. Okay, we've been doing good. That is Policy Pulse, the education edition. It's the relaunch. I'm so excited that you all are watching or getting the replay. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in. Please share it out. Add your voice to this important conversation. What questions, concerns, right? Do you have comments, etc.? I want to remind you, stay informed, stay engaged. Education depends on active participation of students, of parents, of educators, of policymakers, of business owners, of neighborhood leaders. We are all impacted, and all of us must stay informed and stay engaged. Join me next week for another edition of Policy Pulse, the education edition, where we'll continue our journey through the truth behind Title I. I'll give you any updates around Head Start or any of the other issues that were outlined and share with you all tonight. And really and truly, we're just going to continue this conversation around Title I, what it means for our schools, for our communities, and for our children. That's all I got. Thank you all for joining in, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Have an amazing evening.
Decisions are made, the future's at stake. Let's get the facts, there's too much at play.